KWT slaying.
Salama family, salama. How y'all doing today? Hope you're blessed and highly favored. Now, this particular teaching is going to go into some of the old historical accounts that we covered here on Tail Ministries and other people may have covered as well. But it also aligns with biblical prophecy. And, once your eyes open, you know who the people are, you get the historical dynamics, things start to make more sense. So before we get started, giftgivingforall.com. You want to get your tail mug, get your sweatshirts. You're definitely going to need your hoodies because it's going to be cold this winter for sure. So go over here to giftgivingforall.com. I'm going to put it in the chat for those who are interested. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at this thing from a historical viewpoint. Now, prophetically wise, we're dealing with the beast system. And the beast system has formed since 70 AD. And it goes more so to prove, once again, that the scriptures are true, that they are highly accurate. The problem is those who refuse to take it literally for what it says. Now, we've talked about this before, right? The statue of Daniel. This is accurate in my opinion. All right. Babylonian Empire, Medo-Persian Empire, Grecian Empire, Roman Empire. Now, what we're dealing with now is the Roman Empire, right? We're going from the iron, which is, that fourth beast. It's still the fourth beast all the way down, but we're going from this Roman Empire to the divided kingdom. This divided kingdom is multipolar, which you hear Putin and them talking about a multipolar world order. And so right now, we know that, Esau is the end of the world and Jacob is the beginning of that which follows. So after the Roman Empire rulership comes to an end, and we're going into the Feet Kingdom, the last 10-toe kingdom, which is going to be a divided European kingdom, a divided Gentile kingdom. Now, these legs here of iron is the Western Roman Empire, because we can see that historically, the ones that have been ruling. But there's a divided kingdom that is forming now, right? These 10 toes, which is going, in my opinion, is going to be an East-West European kingdom. Now, it's a world order. So we're going to have a United Nations. Whether or not the United Nations survive this coming war is the question. Or are we going to have a new system? I believe we'll probably have a new system. whether it's called BRICS or whatever it's going to be called, it's going to be a new system. So, but it's all Roman. It's still Roman. Even the 10 toes are going to be Rome, because remember, Rome was a East and West empire. The final kingdom is going to be an East and West empire. It's going to be a multipolar world order. So why do I say this? Why do I say this? Because we have to understand that the things that we are dealing with today is tied to things of the past. And the reason we don't understand why these things are occurring is, one, we didn't know who we were. Two, we didn't know who they were. Okay. Everything in this statue is about the Gentile empires, and these Gentile empires have controlled and enslaved the true Israelites. Now, the thing we have to understand is that this whole historical situation here is complex. Because remember, we had a commission to go out and make disciples of men, right? We see in Esther, where a lot of the Assyrians and stuff, and a lot of the foreign nations became what we call Jews, right? I don't want to get into particulars of Jews, Judaism, Yahudim, and all this stuff, Israel, Yasharal. I don't want to get into that. We're going to stick with common terminology and names so we have an understanding. But what we're dealing with is a historical relationship of a war, right, against the Israelites. And it's obvious. Now, we had the Crusaders, right? Now, a lot of us understand the Crusaders went into quote unquote Jerusalem. I'm saying quote because, I don't believe that's the real Jerusalem. Quote unquote Jerusalem to fight and take it over for the Christian empires, right? We're going to get into that. All right, but the Crusaders were primarily composed of Western European Christians from various kingdoms and regions. Here are some of the key countries and regions whose nobility and populace significantly participated in the Crusades. Now, notice the kingdom that participated in the Crusades, and notice the kingdoms today. Notice the ones that have taken over Africa, what we call the Berlin Conference, the Great Scramble, the ones who've enslaved us. Take note of these things because they all tie together, which is why you're going to see ain't nothing changed, right? It's just that they've hidden things. All right, so the Kingdom of France, French knights and nobles played a leading role in several crusades, and many crusading orders had their origins in France. The French were among the most numerous participants. The Holy Roman Empire, a multi-ethnic, take note of that, a multi-ethnic complex of territories in Western and Central Europe, where Western and Central Europe. Who has enslaved us? Who took over the African continent? Western and Central Europe. Also provided many crusaders. The German knights and nobles were active participants. Who took over the continent? The French, the British, the Germans, the Belgians, the Portuguese. I'm just saying, you're going to see a connection here that continues on to this day. The Kingdom of England, English kings such as Richard the Lionheart played prominent roles, particularly in the Third Crusade. The Kingdom of Sicily, the Normans, Italy. The Normans from the Kingdom of Sicily participated in several crusades, notably under the leaders like Bohemond of Taranto. The Kingdom of Portugal. Portugal was involved in the Reconquista in the Iberian Peninsula and also participated in the wider crusading movement. Now, we know all of this stuff ties back to the Inquisition and all this stuff, and it all comes together. And what we have in modern history is the continuation of this kingdom, of the Roman Empire, right? This is our enemy. These are the people who enslaved us. This is what's happening in the world today. All right, the Kingdom of Aragon and the Kingdom of Castile, Spain. Spanish knights were primarily engaged in the Reconquista against Muslims in the Iberian Peninsula, but also joined the wider Crusades. The Kingdom of Hungary. Some Hungarian forces also participated in various crusades. Various Italian city-states. Many Italians from city-states like Venice, Genoa, and Pisa were involved, often providing naval support and benefiting from a new trade of opportunities with the East. The Duchy of Normandy. The Normans, notably those from Normandy, played significant roles in the establishment of Crusader states in the Levant. The Kingdom of Bohemia. Some Bohemian nobles and knights also took part in the crusading movements. Flanders and other Low Countries, nobles and knights from the Low Countries, including Flanders, also joined the Crusades. The Kingdom of Scotland. Some Scottish individuals participated, albeit not in a significant number as other nations. So we're going to find out that the reason why the Western nations enslaved us and not the Eastern nations like the Russians, right? We're going to see that the ones who enslaved us, the ones who took over the land, is, you know, we're going to get into that. It's the same people today. The same people were kicking off the continent, right? The Franks, the French. But let's continue. So the term Franks has been used to describe several different groups throughout history, primarily associated with the Germanic peoples who inhabited and ruled regions of present-day Germany, France, Belgium, and the Netherlands. Who invaded Africa, family? I'm just asking. See, ain't nothing changed. Early Franks. The Franks originally were a collection of Germanic tribes, including the Salians and the Ripuarians, who settled in the area of Lower and Middle Rhine in the 3rd century. They gradually expanded into Roman Gaul, mostly corresponding to modern-day France and Belgium. The Moravian and Carolingian Franks. The Moravian dynasty, y'all heard about that, right? Especially if you, well, let me continue. The Moravian dynasty marked the emergence of a united Frankish kingdom under leaders like Clovis I, who converted to Christianity. Can we say Catholicism? The kingdom further expanded to encompass much of Gaul. The Carolingian, I know I'm not saying that right, but anyway, the Carolingian, I think it is, the Carolingian dynasty followed the Moravian dynasty, with its most famous ruler being Charlemagne. Charles the Great reigned from 768 to 814, who expanded the Frankish Empire to cover much of Western and Central Europe, and whose crowned the First Holy Roman Empire by Pope Leo III in 800. Now, remember all of the evil that the French have done to us, all of the evil that they've done on the continent, all of the evil the Belgians have done to us, all of the evil they've done on the continent. These the people. It's part of the Crusades. Franks during the Crusades. During the time of the Crusades, beginning in the late 11th century, the term Franks was used broadly by Muslim writers and populations in the Middle East to refer to Western European Crusaders. Regardless of their actual ethnic origin, it wasn't specifically referring to the historical Germanic tribes or the people of the Frankish kingdoms, but rather to Latin Christians from Western Europe. See, there we go, Western Europe, Latin, including the Normans, the French, and others. Now, you know what happened when Spain came over to the New World, and Spain took over the quote-unquote New World and took over Mexico and all these things, right? And we got this mix of indigenous people and Hispanics, and how nobody like Negroes is because of these people, right? But it's not because we're black. That's how they identify us, but it's a spirit, but it's because of who we are. And you're going to see that it all makes sense. But anyway, modern usage. In modern times, the term Frank has become largely historical and is primarily used to refer to the Germanic people who founded the Frankish kingdoms, which played a crucial role in shaping medieval European history. The legacy of the Franks is particularly evident in the history and development of who? France and Germany. And the term France itself is derived from the Latin word Francia, meaning land of the Franks. See why we still to this day having trouble with the French? Trying to kick the French off the continent because they think they own us. My contention is that everything that has happened to us is because of Rome. The Bible tells us that the final kingdom is a Roman kingdom, from the legs of iron all the way to the toes of iron, right? Mixed partially with clay. This final kingdom that is forming right now, controlled and ruled by Esau. Now, some people are going to say, well, Esau wasn't white. Well, apparently he is today. Not all of them, obviously. The Crusades refers to a series of military expeditions undertaken by European Christians with the primary goal of reclaiming Jerusalem and the Holy Land from Muslim control. The First Crusade was initiated by Pope Urban II in 1095 during the Council of Clermont. Now, this is the biggest thing that is told throughout history, that they were fighting to take control of the Holy Land. No. What they were fighting against, because other interpretations will tell you that, or definitions will tell you that it was a religious war, that the Crusades was a religious war against what? The infidels, which included Jews and Muslims. It wasn't about the Holy Land. They emphasized the Holy Land. It was a religious war. It was against the Jews. And look, we know this for a fact because many of you all have been on this channel, following this channel and others, where we talked about what happened during the time of the Inquisition, what happened when they kicked us out of Spain and Portugal and sent us to Sao Tome, sent us to Angola, sent us to Africa, right? We've been there. So we know it was a religious war. We know that they were forcing us to convert, right? And we're going to talk about this. But so here's a brief overview of the Crusades. First Crusades, 1096 to 1099, initiated by Pope Urban II with the primary goal to aid the Byzantine Empire in the capture of Jerusalem. The Crusaders successfully captured Jerusalem in 1099. Second Crusades, 1147 to 1149, launched in response to the fall of the county of Edessa. It ended in failure. Third Crusade, 1189 to 1192, initiated after the capture of Jerusalem by Saladin. In 1187, it did not succeed in recapturing Jerusalem, but did result in a treaty allowing Christian pilgrims access to the holy sites. Fourth Crusades, 1202 to 1204, deviated from its original goal and ended with the sack of Constantinople, severely damaging the Byzantine Empire. Several other minor and less successful crusades occurred until the end of the 13th century, each with varying objectives and results. The Crusades had significant impacts on the development of Western and Middle Eastern civilizations and relations between Christians and Muslim regions. Now, they say Christians and Muslim regions, but we know for a fact that during this time, right, that Jews lived amongst everybody, amongst Muslims, amongst other indigenous people of Africa, lived amongst Europeans, right? But, during the 15th century, right, which is about 1400 to 1499, and the 17th century, which is 1600 to 1699, we had a lot of this stuff going on with attacks against Jews, right? Now, some of them people think it was them. I'm not saying some of them didn't get involved in some of this stuff, but we're going to talk about the complexities of the history. Right. So there was obviously something going on between the Jews, right, and Christendom. It was a religious war. Now, like I said, the emphasis when you do your research, they talk about how the Crusaders were trying to take control of Jerusalem and they leave it at that. No. Right now, I'm going to go to Wikipedia. You can validate the resources all you want. I'm not getting into all the stuff about Wikipedia and all this stuff. Just go to the references, right? So history of the Jews and the Crusades. The history of the Jews and the Crusades is part of history of anti-Semitism toward Jews in the Middle Ages. The call for the First Crusade intensified the persecutions of the Jews, and they continued to be targets of Crusaders' violence and hatred throughout the Crusades. So they were targets of the Crusaders. So the emphasis is always on Jerusalem. But yeah, you're going after quote unquote Jerusalem, but you're not going after the Jews. Well, we know historically, we know the history, we know what's been going on. But let's continue. The dispersion of the Jewish community occurred following the destruction of the Second Temple, with many Jews settling in different regions across Europe and the Middle East. They don't tell you that they were black. During this time, several Jewish communities coalesced across the Levant in approximately 50 known locations, including Jerusalem, Tiberias, Ramia, Ashkelon, and Caesarea. Many of these communities fell into the path of the Crusader forces on their mission to capture the Holy Land. Now, their mission was to capture the Holy Land, right? But remember, in 70 AD, they already captured the Holy Land. Remember that. They kicked us out of our homeland. We went to the mountains. So yet they're fighting the Romans to take the Holy Land. No, they don't want to tell you that it was an extermination campaign. The Bible said that we were hunted from mountain to mountain. That's what the scripture says. From mountain to mountain, mountains represent kingdoms. We were hunted from kingdom to kingdoms, and this is the history. Once you know who the people are, it's a bit obvious, right? So Christian sources justify attacking Jewish communities as a means of seizing wealth and supplies. One Christian priest commenting on the behavior of the Crusaders in the Balkans wrote, "This is believed to be the hand of the Lord working against the pilgrims who sinned in his sight with their great impurity and intercourse with prostitutes and slaughtered the wandering Jews." Who slaughtered the wandering Jews? Who slaughtered who? The wandering Jews. Let me repeat this again for those who are slow to hear. Slaughtered the wandering Jews who admittedly were contrary to Christ, more from avarice for money than the justice of God. I'm going to come right back to this. Slaughtered the wandering Jews. Now, remember, y'all remember this, right? This is at state.gov, right? This is about Henry Kissinger. He stated, Biafra, 3,000 square miles, 4 to 6 million, Colonel Ojukwu, 35 British trained, erstwhile playboy, presides over the popular support and military morale of a people convinced that defeat means extinction. The Igbos, who? The Igbos, who? The Igbos are the wandering Jews of West Africa, gifted, aggressive, westernized at best, envied and resented, but mostly despised by the mass, who they despised by the mass of their neighbors in the Federation. They have fought well by African standards against heavy odds. Their cynical public relations used to starvation has been brilliant. Who are they? The Igbos. Who are they called? The wandering Jews, according to Henry Kissinger. What did we see here? That they slaughtered the wandering Jews. I wonder who they are. Could it be the Igbos? I'm just saying. But you start putting it together, the pieces start to fit. In the First Crusade, Jewish communities on the Rhine and the Danube were attacked by Crusaders, while others were spared due to the efforts of the papacy. In the Second Crusade, the Jews in France suffered especially. The severity of the massacres was such that word preached Jewish communities in the Middle East, inspiring messianic fervor. Pope Philip II of France treated them with exceptional severity during the Third Crusade. The Jews were also subjected to attacks by the Shepherds' Crusades of 1251 to 1320. So they attacked the Jews. Who? The wandering Jews, right? They got attacked. Why? I thought it was about taking over the Holy Land. How come they attacking Jews all over the place? Now, we know the history. I'm telling you, for those who are new to the channel, haven't watched none of the old historical accounts, this is going to go over your head. It ain't going to make sense. The attacks were opposed by the local bishops and widely condemned at the time as a violation of the Crusades' aims, which were not directed against the Jews. So they were attacking the Jews, but they were supposed to be going after the Holy Land, but they were persecuting the Jews. And we're going to see why they persecuted the Jews. However, the perpetrators mostly escaped legal punishment. The social position of the Jews in Western Europe, there's Western Europe, worsened and legal restrictions increased during and after the Crusades. This led to the anti-Jewish legislation of Pope Innocent III. The Crusades resulted in centuries of resentment on both sides and constitute a turning point in the relationship between Jews and Christians. So we had them chasing Jews. Who did it? The Western European nations. Who control the world today, family? I just want to know. Is it Eastern Europe or Western Europe? Which ones invaded Africa and divided up God's land? They divided up my land according to Joel 3. Was it the Eastern European people or the Western European people? I'm trying to tell you that the Crusades never ended. The Crusades have always continued. As a matter of fact, the Crusades continues at this very moment. It has never ended. I'm going to show you that what we've been dealing with is dealing with the same enemy since 70 AD. Now, the complexities of the situation is the fact that we had people who were of the bloodline and people who were not of the bloodline. We've seen the historical accounts that there were Black Jews and there were white Jews. And we saw the historical accounts that the Black Jews did not mix with the white Jews. I'm going to tell you the complexities of the situation add to the fact that what we really have been dealing with is people who wanted to hang around us, if you know what I'm saying, who wanted to hang around us because we were God's chosen people. And so there's been some confusion as of late. You know, listen to what I'm saying. There's been some confusion on who's the original people. Why? Because some of the people hung around us. So remember, during the Middle Ages, right? During the 15th and the 17th centuries and stuff like that, we had the Crusades, but we also had what? We had the Inquisition all around the same time. Now, the Inquisition was specifically against a certain set of people. Now, we've been through the historical accounts of what the Portuguese and the Spanish Jews look like. I'm not going there no more. Not right now, let's say. I'm not going there today, even though we might talk about it a little bit, because some of you all should already know what the historical account says about the Jews who were in Spain and Portugal, how they went to Sao Tome and they were slaves, how they went to Angola and they were slaves, how they went to Africa and they were slaves, and they were sent into captivity worldwide. But I digress. What we're dealing with here is the continuation of the control of a group of people by a nation of people who they refer to, or who the world referred to as Romans. The Romans never lost control. They never lost power. As a matter of fact, the Western Roman Empire rules today. The same people who were part of the Crusades, they rule today. So the Inquisition refers to a group of institutions within the Catholic Church tasked with combating heresy, and it started in the 12th century. The medieval Inquisition, the first form of the Inquisition, known as the medieval Inquisition, was established in 1184 by the papal bull at Aboulindam by Pope Lucius III. It was intended to combat heretical groups in southern France like the Cathars and Waldensians. The Spanish Inquisition, a more infamous form of the Inquisition, the Spanish Inquisition was established later in 1478 by Ferdinand II of Aragon and Isabella I of Castile. This particular Inquisition is known for its brutality and is often the one most referenced in popular culture. It aimed to maintain Catholic orthodoxy in the Kingdom of Aragon and Castile and was used to persecute Jews, Muslims, and Protestants, Christians, among others. The Roman Inquisition, another notable branch, is the Roman Inquisition, established in 1542, which focused on combating Protestantism and other heresies in Italy and other parts of Europe. Each of these inquisitions operated differently and at different times, but collectively, they have had a lasting impact on the history of the Catholic Church and the regions where they were active. My contention is that Rome has never lost power. Rome is in control today. Rome is in control of the world order, the world governmental system. The reason why we're shot in the streets is because this is part of the laws of Rome, because we're not humans, right? Everything that has happened has aligned with the laws and rules of the Roman Empire, of the Holy Roman Empire, of the Catholic Church. Now, recently we had this, what the repudiation of the doctrine of discovery means for Indian country. Now, the Pope came out and repudiated the doctrine of discovery. Catholic Church doctrine was used to justify the world's largest land grab and the resulting colonialism. It had an outsized role in shaping the United States and other countries of the New World. So the Catholic Church had a role in the formation of the United States and the New World. They obviously still do have a huge influence in Mexico as well, right? Some of the Caribbean nations. A lot of people were Catholic. Why were they Catholic? Because they were forced to be Catholic. On March 30th, 2023, Pope Francis renounced the 550-year-old doctrine of discovery, which granted European nations the right to claim the new lands they discovered on behalf of Christendom. This is why you ended up having Africa land parted at the Berlin Conference. It's all part of the doctrine of discovery, all part of the Crusades, all part of chasing the indigenous people and the Jews around the world. It's all about imposing the control of Rome, which is the leg of iron, which is the toes of iron, which is even this final BRICS kingdom is going to be a split between East and West, which is still going to be the Roman Empire, which is going to be partly of iron and part of clay. According to the statement issued by the Vatican, the Catholic Church formally repudiates those concepts that fail to recognize the inherent human rights of indigenous peoples, including what has become known as the legal and political doctrine of discovery. The Church acknowledges that these papal bulls did not adequately reflect the equal dignity of the rights of indigenous people. So why is he saying this now? He's saying this because they already controlled the world. See, the legs of iron is the beast system. It is the fourth beast of Daniel. This is the system that has persecuted Israel in these last days. This is the system that's imposing the technological, technocratic, authoritarian system. If we get reparations, more than likely it's going to be because the Roman Catholic Church said give reparations. Well, the Most High going to make them do it. Don't get it twisted. They're never going to do it out of their own free will. But some kind of way, they will probably be the ones who force the giving of reparations at a global level. Because they are the ones that are still in power today. They are the ones that control the secret societies. They are the ones that control the people who stole your identity. Why? Because they're Romans. Why? Because they became converts when they came from Onkelos. Onkelos became a convert in Rome, and so it came down and they inherited. So we had this relationship with people who don't necessarily look like us, right? We've had this relationship. But what happened was, it became persona non grata to become a dark Jew. It became persona non grata to become dark, right? So it's like, okay, well, I know I was hanging with y'all, talking about them folks. I know I was hanging with y'all, but I can't hang with y'all no more because, y'all persona non grata. Y'all slaves, and if we hang around with y'all any longer, we're going to be slaves too. So we got to just go along and continue with our identity that we took from y'all. But, we just, we can't really hang with y'all like that no more because y'all got a target on your back. Y'all got a target on your back. And that's why it wasn't important for them to say anything about people who don't look like them, because now all of a sudden we waking up and saying, you know what, we the originals. Well, we can't deny y'all the originals, but we all the same. But it's all because of Rome. Now, the evidence that Rome is still in power and especially controls the United States of America is this fact here that I'm about to show you. So the list of meetings between the Pope and the presidents of the United States. The first meeting between a Pope and an incumbent U.S. president took place in the aftermath of World War I, January 1919, at the Vatican between Benedict, what's that, the 15th, and when Woodrow Wilson, is that the 25th. Altogether, there had been 31 meetings between 6 popes and 14 U.S. presidents over the past century. I think that's 15, right, family? Let me know. I think that's 15. Anyway, so here we go. First one, Woodrow Wilson, President of the United States, met with the Pope. Dwight D. Eisenhower, JFK, Lyndon B. Johnson, Richard Nixon, Gerald Ford, Jimmy Carter, Ronald Reagan, George Herbert Walker Bush, Bill Clinton, George W. Bush, Barack Obama, Donald Trump, Joe Biden. Everyone met with the Pope. Why? Because the Pope rules this system. The Pope rules this system. See, look at that. There's Reagan right there. George Bush, Barack Obama, Donald Trump. Every U.S. president since Woodrow Wilson have to meet with the Pope. The Pope wears white, they wear black, showing their submission. Rome, according to the scriptures, would be the final empire. According to historical accounts, Rome is still the final authority of the Roman Empire. Of the world. Rome is still the final authority of the world. Also, it's the Western European nations that have enslaved us. It's the Western nations that continue to persecute us. It is those nations that were associated with the Crusades, those nations who had chased us around the world from mountain to mountain, kingdom to kingdom, all under the authority of Rome. This is who rules the world today. It is Rome. Don't get it twisted. This is who rules the world. Now, this is from the book called Sephardum, or the History of the Jews in Spain and Portugal. Sixth Council of Toledo on Catholicity in Spain, Jewish address to King Resuint, 12th Council of Toledo, chronology, blah, blah, blah. In the third and last year of the next reign, that of Chintila, 638 AD, was summoned the Sixth Council of Toledo. The interval since the Fourth Council was 5 years, but Isidore of Seville was no more, and the effect of his removal, a better world may be seen in this enactment. Canon 3. The inflexible perfidy of the Jews comes at length to be subdued by piety and the divine grace. For the inspiration of the Most High God, our most excellent Christian prince, inflamed with order for the faith, together with the clergy of his kingdom, resolved to eradicate to the uttermost their prevarication and superstition. Who? The Jews. Not suffering the residence of anyone in the land who is not a Catholic. Who's not a Catholic. Remember, we remember the historical accounts that the Jews had to be converted to Christianity, some say to Catholicism. For which zeal we render thanks to the Almighty King of Heaven, that he has created a soul so illustrious and endued it with his wisdom. May he bestow upon him a long life in this world and glory everlasting in the future. We do now, therefore, decree a corroboration of what has been heretofore instituted in General Synod concerning the Jews, seeing that all things necessary for their salvation that could have been enacted, we know to have been done, and with circumspection, all such edicts we now declare to be valid. We do deliberately resolve that whosoever in time to come shall obtain the royalty, he shall not ascend the throne before having promised an oath never to allow the Jews to infringe upon this holy faith, and that in no wise favoring their perfidiousness, neither seduced by negligence or cupidity. The more evangelical and prudent views of Isidore ought to have been fresh in the recollection of these Toledan counselors. Under his guidance, they had blamed Sisyphus' barbarian Christianizing of 90,000 Jews. But immediately on his decease, the ecclesiastics decree an act of equal oppression by not suffering the residence of anyone in the land who is not a Catholic, and proceed to bind their kings, present and future, to this determination. What? To bind their kings to this present and future determination. What? That the Jews ain't going to take over this fate. They're going to control this fate. The new sovereign acquiesced and thus gave proof that he was not chosen and appointed by man, but from God. Modern Romanist writers are enraptured with this noble resolve. It is a most ancient and peculiar glory of the Gothic kings in Spain that not only in the time of this council under Chintilla, but even from the reign of Recared, in the third council of Toledo, they endured none to remain in their dominions, alien to the Catholic religion. Thus have the Spanish monarchs ever preserved and do still labor to sustain their title of most Catholic superlatively. Above all other kings and princes in Christendom, we have here the express point of vow towards which the church in Spain had been advancing in each successive council with firm and well-considered steps. To pause a while for cool consideration, endeavoring to understand the sentiments of a devoted churchman in that age and country. Is it not possible that some such may have sanctioned this ultimate measure from purely religious, though still mistaken motives? Imagine such a one musing in his cell with the Bible open before him and Augustine on the city of God in his hand, how bright and peaceful a vision he might frame to his imagination of an identified world and church. Okay, so the influence of Catholicism is what they want over the whole world. Now, we're going to look at some of these laws that they created against the Jews, right? Now, we know who the original are. Canon IX. We have read over the watchful scrutiny those laws lately issued by our most glorious prince in separate divisions upon the execrable perfidiousness of the Jews. We have also approved with discreet gravity all those regulations, and since they were given with just reason and approved by Senate examination, there shall be maintained henceforward in an irrevocable course of judicial proceedings against the transgressions of them, the laws and repetition of former laws against Jewish transgression, and the recent ratification of the same. So think of this when they're saying Jewish. Think in terms of both the Negro, right, and both those who converted. Now, remember, according to some of the historical accounts that we've gone through in the past, what did the Spanish Jews look like, y'all? What did the Portuguese Jews, what did the Sephardic Jews, according to them, look like? I'll let y'all comment in the chat, because I know some of y'all are educated. All right. So, item. So, Jewish transgression and recent ratification of saying, item, that Jews shall not withhold themselves, their children, or slaves from baptism. That Jews shall neither celebrate Passover as they are accustomed to do, nor practice circumcision, nor dissuade anyone from the faith in Christ. That Jews presume not to celebrate the Sabbath or the other festivals of their ritual. That all Jews shall cease from labor on the Lord's day, that's Sunday for them, and on other specified days. That Jews no longer make any selection in diet. Other words, eat pork. That Jews no longer intermarry with near relations. That Jews no longer presume to defend their sect to the disparagement of our religion. Also, that they flee nowhere to avoid the faith. See, you can't go anywhere. You can't flee to avoid being converted to Catholicism. Why do you think so many Black people were Catholics? I grew up Catholic. Why do you think so many people in Louisiana are Catholic? Also, that in the southern states are Catholic. Also, that they flee nowhere to avoid the fate, and that none may receive such persons, thus escaping. You can't run away. I don't care where you go. We're going to chase you down from kingdom to kingdom, from mountain to mountain. We're going to chase you down and convert you to Catholicism. That no Christian accept any gift whatsoever to prejudice of the faith in Christ. That Jews shall read no books which the Christian faith abhors. That no Christian slave shall belong or attach to Jews. Okay, so you wonder why Israelites, you wonder why Negroes got a problem with Eurocentric Christianity, because it is based off of Catholicism. Its main foundation is Catholicism. If a Jew declare himself a Christian and on this account refuses to surrender a slave, the profession of every Jew coming to the faith is to be delivered in writing. The conditions to which Jews are to swear when forsaking Judaism for the true faith they give in their professions. Concerning the Christian slaves of Jews not announced as Christians, and concerning such as shall denounce them, that no Jew shall dare by virtue of any authority beneath the royal ordinance to govern, strike, or distrain a Christian, that the slaves of Jews as yet unconverted shall, on accepting the grace of Christ, receive their freedom, that Jews shall not dare to overrule a Christian family by authority derived from landowners or others, also concerning the penalties to be laid upon those who shall employ them on such commissions. You wonder why you have a hard time getting a job? It ain't because you black, it's because you the true Jews. That's why. That a Jew arriving from other provinces or territories belonging to or dominion shall not delay to present himself before the bishop or priest of the place, also concerning what is proper for him to observe in every respect. In what manner musters of the Jews are to be made on stated days by the bishops, that whosoever shall have a Jew attached to his service shall surrender him at the demand of any priest. That the whole office of distinguishing the Jews belongs to the priests alone. On the penalties to which priests and magistrates are liable for delaying to execute the laws against Jews. That magistrates shall not presume to decide any matters of Jewish transgressions without the sanction of the priest. That bishops are exempt from penalties when their presbyters have not forwarded for their adjudication what they have not themselves corrected, respecting the prerogative of mercy reserved to princes in favor of such as are truly converted to Christ's faith. That every bishop shall furnish the Jews in his diocese with a book written against their errors, and shall lay up their professions or conditions in the archives of his church. The grave promulgation of all which laws, as approved by Senate decision, so by general consent of us all, shall be hereafter enforced against the transgression of them. See, this explains why a lot of people in New Orleans and a lot of people in the South are Catholics, right? And how they all have, many of them have gone to Catholic schools, right? And sitting under the priest and sitting under the nuns. Why? Because they are Jews, and they are black Jews, and they were discriminated against and under the control of their enslavers. These are the same people, the Western powers, right, who enslaved us, the same ones who were part of the Crusades, who enslaved us. These decrees were elaborately oppressive and probably on that very account defeated their own object. From one of the regulations, it appears that there was already an index prohibitorius in existence, and the closing one accounts for a theological work of that time by Julian, the metropolitan archbishop, at the express desire of the king to demonstrate the vanity of still expecting the Messiah who was to have come. All right, so let's move on. So we see that we have here that Catholicism was the religion that Jews had to convert to. We've seen this in other shows, other historical accounts, documents we talked about. We were forced to convert to Christianity or forced to convert to Catholicism, right? One and the same, okay? This is why Israelites got a problem with Eurocentric Christianity, because you ain't nothing but Catholicism. You ain't nothing but Rome. You're the same people that hung us from trees. You're the same people that passed all these laws that forced us to convert to your religion. Not that we have a problem with the Messiah, because he's our God, he's our king, he's our savior, but it's your religion that's the problem. So proof of this would be the black codes, okay, or the Code Noir. The Code Noir provided that slaves might lodge complaints with local judges in the case of mistreatment of being underprovided with necessities, but also that their statements should be considered only as reliable as that of minors or domestic servants. The first article of the Code Noir, or the Black Codes, enjoins the expulsion of all Jews. Why? Because the Jews were slaves. Why? Because the Jews were black. Why? Because the Jews were Negroes. This is why you had the Code Noir. Why is it called the Code Noir? Why is it called the Black Codes? Because the Jews were black. The first article of the Code Noir enjoins the expulsion of all Jews residing in the colonial territories due to their being sworn enemies of the Christian faith. See? Now, this is in America now. enemies of the Christian faith. Within 3 months, under penalty of the confiscation of person and property, the Antillean Jews targeted by the Code Noir, Black Codes, were mainly descendants of families of Portuguese and Spanish origin who had come from the Dutch colony of Pernambuco in Brazil. Black Codes, who is this for? For slaves. The writers of the code believed that blacks were human persons endowed with their soul and receptive to salvation. The Code Noir encouraged that slaves be baptized, did we not see that, and educated in the apostolic and Roman Catholic religion. Slaves had the right to marry, provided the master allowed them to do so, and had to be buried in consecrated ground if they were baptized. The code, the Black Codes, prohibited slaves from publicly practicing any religion other than Catholic, Apostolic, and Roman Catholic religion, including the practice of the Protestant faith. The code extends the punishment of pagan slave conventicles to masters who allow such behavior. The code prohibited masters from having or to allow adulterous relations with their slaves and decreed a substantial fine of 2,000 pounds of sugar. In addition to the confiscation of the children and the mother, the code encouraged free men to marry in the proper manner observed by the church, a slave in concubinage, such that the slave and the children would become free and legitimate. So we see here that the Black Codes had to do with the Jews residing in colonial territory, and it's called Black Codes for a reason. Why? Because they're dealing with black slaves. I'm just saying. And what? The only religion that they could adhere to was Catholicism. Why? Because the Roman Catholic Church controlled the world then, and the Roman Catholic Church controls the world now. Now, there's one interesting fact that a lot of people don't pay close attention to, some have, is the idea that the Jews were sent to ghettos. The world is a ghetto. Now, the reason why Negroes, most Negroes back in the day, grew up in ghettos is because they continued the laws, they continued the policy of Rome. The Jews were to live in ghettos separated from the Gentile Christians. The Venetian Ghetto. The Venetian Ghetto was the area of Venice in which Jews were forced to live by the government of the Venetian Republic. The English word ghetto is derived from the Jewish ghetto in Venice. The Venetian Ghetto was instituted in March 29, 1516 by decree of Doge Leonardo Loredan and the Venetian Senate. It was not the first time that Jews in Venice were compelled to live in a segregated area of the city. Can we say segregation, boys and girls? In 1555, Venice had 160,208 inhabitants, including 923 Jews who were mainly merchants. Between 1541 and 1633, the Ghetto Vecchio and Ghetto Nuevo were made to accommodate the increase in Jewish immigration. But the total number of Jews in Italy did not exceed 25,000. The Jewish community in Venice did not exceed 5,000 until the early 17th century. Now, notice something. The same issue that's happening today is the same issue that happened then. What does the current president of Italy say? That there's a migration crisis and that Italy is being overrun by quote unquote Black Africans. Ain't nothing changed. Many of those Black Africans, many of them, not all of them, but many of those Black Africans are Jews. They are Israelites. So they had a problem then. They have a problem now. They created ghettos then. They created ghettos now. So here's a book. It's by Bruce D. Haynes. It's called The Soul of Judaism, Judaism of the African Descent in America. The Soul of Judaism, Bruce D. Haynes. The practice of confining Jews behind ghetto walls developed over the course of centuries. In 1179, the church's Third Council of the Lateran issued a vaguely defined decree that Christians should no longer live amongst Jews. Can we say segregation, boys and girls? Secular authority throughout Christendom chose different interpretations of the papal policy. And in 1215, Pope Innocent III hoped to prevent illicit sexual intercourse between Christians and Jews by imposing clothing distinctions on them. Already, artists had adopted the funnel-shaped hat, sometimes worn by Jews, to signify all Jews. And by 1220, the same that was being used to depict Jews and heretics alike. By the 1260, the pointed Judenhut was imposed by church authorities on all Jews of Germany and Bohemia. In Venice, by 1221, Jews were required by edict to wear distinguishing markers of material culture, while they were also forbidden from owning land within the ghetto and obligated to rent at rates 1/3 above the norm. Now, let me ask y'all a question, fam. Do Negroes pay more money for apartments and renting homes? Do Negroes pay more money for taking out loans? Did Negroes live in ghettos? I'm just asking. Each morning, they would don their yellow hats, men, scarves, women, and leave the ghetto to work or shop among Christians. The Venetian Republic had issued a decree banning marriage between Jewish men and Christian women. Well, we weren't marrying them anyway, according to other documentation, because of the laws. In 1443, relations between Christian men and Jewish women were prohibited, and all Jews were required to wear badges with yellow circles. The badge was replaced by a yellow biretta in 1496. In exchange for a special tax levied against them, Jews were allowed to direct università, a colonial-like structure of self-governance under the auspices of the Venetian Republic. Now, remember that Adolf Hitler caused the Jews to wear badges, right, to distinguish them. So Adolf Hitler continued this policy of ghettos, putting Jews in ghettos and wearing these badges, right? And so what we end up seeing is that this continuation happened all the way into America. So America is part of the crusading nations. America is part of Britain, right? Part of those who were part of the Crusades, part of those who persecuted Jews. America was part of those who persecuted Jews. So that's why America had ghettos. And who were in the ghettos? We're going to see this because this is very interesting. It's a very interesting historical account. Venice, a trading economy, was desperately in need of a source of credit. As in other Christian societies, the Jews of Venice were prohibited from becoming nobles or serfs and were cast into an intermediary role, serving as merchants, peddlers, and moneylenders. Now, remember, we couldn't hold office, right? We couldn't do none of these things. See, I'm telling you, these laws followed us wherever we went. These are Roman laws. Money lending or usury, which typically charge interest rates of up to 20%, was considered corrupt and a theft of time by Christians. Over a period of some 100 years, 3 distinct Jewish ghettos emerged in Venice. The Ghetto Nuovo, New Ghetto, in 1516, the Ghetto Vecchio, Old Ghetto, in 1541, and the Ghetto Nuovissimo in 1633. These ghettos came on the heels of a century of rising anti-Semitism as early as 1378. Can we say racism, right? Same thing, anti-Semitism, racism, right? Archdeacon Ferrand Martinez vilified the Jews not only for the murder of Christ, but also for the outmoded practices which doomed them to eternity. Over the next 13 years, his fiery sermons in Seville incited violence against Jews, which culminated with the ravaging of Seville's Jewish quarter on June 6, 1391. Yet for the first time, a few Jews who agreed to be baptized were allowed to remain. The Spanish Inquisition was well underway before it was officially declared by Papal Bull in 1478. Christian leaders in Italy and Spain had already been spreading rumors that the Passover matzah were prepared with Christian blood and that Jews drank the blood of Christians to remove the stench associated with the diabolical nature. Even after they fled Spain and later Portugal, Jews were treated as a permanently alien presence. In Venice, the practice of usury and the outbreak of the bubonic plague further stigmatized Jews in the Jewish body and prompted the building of the first Venetian ghetto. Unlike the Roman ghetto, 1555, which was built by Pope Paul IV to convert Jews to Christianity, the Venetian ghettos were created to contain Jews. What? The Venetian ghettos were created to contain Jews. By 1589, they contained some 1,700 Jews who were organized as an administrative unit governed first by a leader and later by a council of elders. By 1642, 2,414 individuals were housed in the three increasingly overcrowded spaces. So overcrowded spaces in what? Ghettos. What does that sound like, right? Just like the ghettos in America. 5 synagogues were eventually established to accommodate Jews immigrating from France, Italy, Germany, the Levant, Spain, and Portugal. Despite the Jewish cultural renaissance that evolved with each successive wave of newcomers, Jews were unable to obtain formal citizenship rights and were collectively taxed as a corporate entity in return for sovereignty in matters of religion and justice. So Jews were forced to be Catholics. Jews could not hold office. Who did that sound like? Does that not sound like the Negroes? Does that not sound like the former slaves? I'm just asking. Jews as black. Descriptions of Jews and black physicality converge in the scholarship of the 19th century. Consensus, what? Consensus, what? That means they agreed. Consensus, what? That means they all agreed because it's a consensus. Consensus held that Jews were black or swarthy and that Jewish blackness was not only a mark of racial inferiority, but also an indicator of the diseased nature of the Jew. Gilman, 1991, Brocken, 1998. Segregated from its history, how ghetto lost its meaning. As you might have gathered from our blog's title, the Code Switch team is kind of obsessed with the ways we speak to each other each week. All right, so let's skip. The word ghetto is an etymological mystery. Why? We already know where it came from. The Venice, right? We read that. Is it from the Hebrew get or bill of divorce, from the Venetian ghetto or foundry, from the Yiddish gektats, enclosed, from Latin whatever, for Jewish, from Italian borghetto, little town. In his etymology column for the Oxford University, Anatoly Lieberman took a look at each of these possibilities. He considered ever more improbable origins, Latin for ribbon, German for street, Latin for throat, before declaring the word a stubborn mystery. Well, should he not be looking at the Italian word? So we had the ghettos. But whatever the root language, the word's original meaning was clear. The quarter in a city, chiefly what? In Italy, to which the Jews were restricted, as the OED puts it. In the 16th and 17th century, cities like Venice, Frankfurt, Prague, and Rome forcibly segregated their Jewish populations, often walling them off and submitting them to onerous restrictions. Can we say Harlem? Can we say segregation? Can we say blacks not drinking from the same water fountains or going to the same restaurants as whites? Can we say nothing has changed? They continued the laws of the Roman Catholic Church. All of this followed us over here to the United States. By the late 19th century, these ghettos have been steadily dismantled. But instead of vanishing from history, ghettos reappeared with a purpose more ominous than segregation. Under Nazi Germany, German forces established ghettos in over 1,000 cities across Europe. They were isolated, strictly controlled, and resource deprived, but unlike the ghettos of history, they weren't meant to last. Reviving the Jewish ghetto made genocide a much simpler project. As the Holocaust proceeded, ghettos were emptied by the trainloads. The prisoners of the enormous Warsaw Ghetto, which at one point held 400,000 Jews, famously fought their deportation to death camps. They were outnumbered and undersupplied, but some managed to die on their own terms. Thousands of Jews were killed within the walls of the ghetto rather than in camps. Jewish ghettos were finally abolished after the end of World War II, but the word lived on, redefined as poor urban Black community. Now, once again, what power structure was behind Germany? What religious order supported Hitler? I'm just saying, ain't nothing changed. Nigger music. Now, look at this right here, right? This was the image that the Germans used to denigrate Black folks and to denigrate Jews. Nigger music was a derogatory term used by the Nazi Party during the Third Reich to demonize musical styles that had been invented by Black people, such as swing and jazz. The Nazi Party viewed these musical styles as degenerate works created by an inferior race and were therefore prohibited. The term at the time was also applied to indigenous music styles of Black Africans. At the time of the Weimar Republic during the 1927, Ernest Krenek's opera of Johnny Spelt contained jazz musical performances that caused protests among some right-wing ethnic nationalist groups in Germany at the time. In 1930, American music Henry Cowell wrote in the Mellows Journal that jazz interpreted a mixture of African-American and Jewish elements, stating that the fundamentals of jazz are the syncopation and rhythmic accents of the Negro. Their modernization is the work of New York Jews, so jazz is Negro music seen through the eyes of Jews. So Nazi Germany was tying Blacks to Jews. Now, why did they tie Blacks to Jews? We're going to see. Now, here you're going to see this. This was in the Times Magazine book. I have the book somewhere. I couldn't find it. But they have the Orient, right? The nigger here. The whatever this is, with the door or something, the Hamite, and they're Juden effing Belfort, right? So what Hitler was saying was it was a mixed race. Hitler was saying it was a mixed race of Blacks and Jews. Why? Because as we saw in the historical documents, there were Black Jews and white Jews. And Black Jews and white Jews hung out. They hung out together. Okay. And then once slavery happened, the white Jews say, you know, we're not identifying with y'all no more. So he was saying that these are the same people and that there was a mixture that happened. And this is why we lived in places like Harlem. Everybody, well, some of y'all pretty young, but most of y'all remember Good Times. And most of y'all remember living in the ghetto. Some of y'all too young to know about ghettos. Some of y'all call it the hood. But it all started under the Roman Empire. It all started under Eurocentric Christianity. So now you understand why the missionaries went into Africa first. Why? Because the missionaries were an arm of Rome. Now you understand why every United States president goes and bows before the Pope. Because the Roman Empire has never ended. See, there's a confusion going on. because most black folks don't know who they are. So when they get shot in the street, when they're discriminated against, when there's segregation, they don't understand that the foundation is wrong. The foundation of the ghetto is wrong. The foundation of slavery is wrong. The beast that controls this world order, this final kingdom, this fourth beast is Rome. It is a hodgepodge of nation states controlled by Rome. This is why you had the black codes against Jews and black slaves. You can only become a Catholic. You couldn't become anything else. This is why you couldn't marry them folks. Y'all marrying them now, though. They got y'all marrying them now. But back then, you couldn't marry them folks. See, y'all don't understand the situation we're in. The world is under control of Satan. The world is under control of Rome. Rome has never disappeared, just as the scripture shows us. It's an iron kingdom that's going to be here till the end. The final 10 toes is still going to be a Roman system, partly strong, partly weak. This is why France controls so much of Africa. This is why Belgium went in. This is why Germany went in. This is why Britain went into Africa. Why? Because they all are Crusaders. Nothing changed. Those the same ones that went into quote unquote promised land, the same one chasing the Jews around the world. They're the same people. This is why we're discriminated against, because Rome says discriminate against us. When Rome says pay reparations, then they're going to pay reparations until Rome says otherwise, you know. See, Rome says they're not paying right now. But when Rome says pay, America going to pay, Britain going to pay, France going to pay, Belgium going to pay, Switzerland going to pay, Norway gonna pay. The Dutch gonna pay. See, they didn't hit themselves pretty well. It's just like what they do when they're fighting Russia right now. It's a proxy war. When they're fighting Russia, NATO not in there directly. It's a proxy war. They're fighting through Ukraine. They're fighting through Ukraine. Same thing. Rome is fighting a proxy war against Negroes. Rome is fighting a proxy war through America, through Britain, through France, through Germany, through Belgium. It's asymmetric warfare against you Negroes. And some of y'all just don't get it. And some of y'all betray your own people to be a part of the Roman system. Some of y'all sell out your own people to be a part of the system. I understand for those who don't know who they are, you know, y'all confused, y'all brainwashed, so y'all hook up with them folks. We all been there. But ain't nothing changed. The same laws they used against us back then, during the time of the Crusades, during the time of the Inquisition, it's the same laws they used against us during the time of segregation. It's the same laws they use against us right now. When they shoot us in the street, ain't nobody held guilty. How bad you think this enslavement is? How bad you think this captivity is? But theirs is going to be worse. It's almost unimaginable how you can get worse than our captivity. But theirs going to be worse. Because they ain't going to have no free will. Why? Because they're going to be hooked up to technology. They're going to have brain implants. They ain't going to be able to associate with nobody because they're going to have robots. And the robot's going to tell them what to do and when to get up and when to sleep and when to take a dump. Sound like slavery to me. I was just watching a video the other day of a robot AI CEO. Robot's going to be your boss. It's bad. See, don't fall for the lie. Don't fall for the okie doke. Don't say these aren't the droids you're looking for because these are the droids you're looking for. This is slavery, and it has continued. This is an asymmetric warfare that has continued for centuries against Negroes who have a heritage of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. We look like the Bible people because we are the Bible people. We suffer like the Bible people because we are the Bible people. But you're going to have Negroes who look like you who are going to say, nah, that ain't true. Ain't no more Jew Greek. But I guarantee you suffering them curses. I don't care what nobody say. I don't care if you married to them folks. I don't care if you got them folks little babies. You suffering them curses. Don't act like you not. Them curses tell who you are. This is how bad it is. They know who you are. You don't know who you are. You wondering why they discriminate against you. You wondering why you go and you play basketball and they have discriminating calls. You wonder why you go and do gymnastics and they don't give you a medal. You don't get it. You say it's racism. It's more like anti-Semitism. All you got to do is do the research. Find out what the historical documents say. You're going to find out everything in that Bible is true. Everything that Bible says would happen to you, happened to you. Also, the Bible says we're going to be delivered. Some people don't believe in the second Exodus, but all hell breaking loose. Just as prophesied. Ain't nobody understand what's happening but you Negroes. Why? Because y'all the people. Ain't nobody believe it. Half of them other jokers over there don't believe it. They don't believe that there's an awakening happening, but obviously there is. And obviously, those things that were hidden is being made manifest. Now you know who your enemy is. It is Rome. Don't act like the Pope an innocent old man. No, he's not. He's the devil. He ruled this system. And this system was designed to oppress and persecute the Negro, aka Hebrew Israelites. Things coming to an end. We probably gonna need to talk about some of the prophetic things that's happening every day. We probably need to talk about the salt water coming into Mississippi. We probably need to talk about the fact that New Orleans is concerned about running out of water because of salt water encroaching upon the Mississippi River. We probably need to talk about the fact that there's a drought in the land of Babylon. I'm just saying, we told you. I told you they're going to push us out. It's going to be uncomfortable for you Negroes. You ain't going to want to stay here. As a matter of fact, you ain't going to be able to stay here. Thousands and thousands of Chinese coming across the border every day. You think they're coming over here for a job? Go do the research. I can't keep up with the prophecies today. There are too many. But you better know who your enemy is. You best watch your back. You best not fall for the okie doke. You best not believe nothing they tell you. You best hold on to the word of Yah. You best not do nothing unless you seek the Most High first about it. And you best not believe other Negroes just because they look like you because they compromised. And definitely don't believe the ones who got money. Because to hold on to that money, they got to compromise. I'm not saying all of them. But if you're working and you get your money from this system, you got to compromise with the system. This is why all you Negroes who don't know you Israel, you better be calling out to the Most High. You better get some revelation. You better ask the Most High, hey, is this true? Is what they're saying true? Are we truly the Israelites of the Bible? Are these people crazy? Are they deceived? Is this the great falling away, or is it the awakening as prophesied? In the land of their captivity, they shall remember themselves. You better ask the Most High. You better find out whose side you on. The Bible says that the Most High will send you a strong delusion that, if possible, to deceive the very elect. That means it has to be so close to the truth that it's hard to determine or differentiate between what is real and what is fake. Can we say Christianity? Who didn't enslave the Negro all these years? Who been persecuting Negroes all these years? Who go to church on Sunday and come out and hang somebody from a tree? I'm just saying. Somebody said it was skin doctrine. I say it's Israelite doctrine. Because the Bible prophesied these things. No, they will hate you because of me. You will be hated of all nations for what? My name's sake. Who hated by all nations? I just want to know. Give me one group of people that no matter what nation they go to, they hate it. Let me figure that out right quick. Can somebody name a group of people, no matter what country they go to, they discriminated against? You're going to be hated of all nations? I can't figure it out. I haven't seen that in history anywhere. It's you folks. You black folks, you African Americans, you Negroes, you Afro-Mexicans, you Afro-Caribbeans, you Afro-Europeans, whatever y'all name go by. Only group of people who hate it, no matter where they go. Make it make sense. If you don't know you the people by now, something wrong with you. If you don't know you the people by now, you caught up in the matrix. If you don't know you the people right now, it's because you then gave up on your people, gave up on the Torah, gave up so you can be a part of their world. There's a separation happening. Oh, yeah. It's us against them. Oh, yeah. Well, Jacoba, we're all believers. No more Jew Greek. No. There's a separation happening. Those for reparations and those who are not. Those for restoration of the Negroes and those who are not. There's a separation happening. Oh, y'all always concentrating on race. Well, didn't Rome concentrate on race? Did not Rome say that the Jews were black? Did not Rome say that we will be perpetual slaves? Did not Rome do that? Did not Rome say we Negroes can only convert to Catholicism? Did not Rome do that? Who made it about race? It was Rome. Most of y'all Christians are Catholic and you don't even know it. You Catholic and you don't even know it. Y'all be all against Catholicism, but you don't even know it. The biggest enemy of the Negro on this planet is Roman Catholicism, period. And I grew up in it. I went to their schools. Little did I know they were the personification of evil. No wonder they mess with little boys. Well, fam, that's all I got. If you want to support this ministry, you can by becoming a patron, or you could give through Cash App, $TOTW7101, or you can go to giftgivingfall.com. I think the evidence is overwhelming, what's been happening. I think we know who the enemy is. Even the scripture tells us that. Italia was taken over by Zepho, Edomite. Who's been persecuting his brother. Well, how did they become white? The mystery of the world. Peace and blessings, Israel. Your captivity is ending. Love you with the love of the Messiah. And please don't forget to support the Dry Bones Project.